In this video I'm going to show you the easiest way to put some new blades into your thicknesser and have them aligned so you get a nice neat cut. There's two methods we used to use to align the blades. One of them was to use this little gauge here, and you'd pop it upside down underneath on the bed, sit the blade across the button, and you just move it until it was within the tolerance in the middle. The problem with that is that you use it on one side, set off one side, and then you go to set the other side, and by the time you get to the second side, the first side's already been messed up, so you've got to go back to the first side and reset it again. So you're going back and forth, and just one little bump and the whole thing's ruined again. So quite time consuming to set it up with one of these gauges. Didn't like it very much at all. The other method I've used before is there's a little magnetic setup. Sits on top of the drum, and the magnet picks up the blade, so you can use two of them, one on each side. But the problem with that is that relies on the drum being perfect, and the drum that I had used it on was not perfect. It had spat out a blade before, put a big dent in, a bit sort of a cut into the drum, and therefore if the drum's not perfect, the blades are not going to be aligned perfect either. So that was an issue. The way that I'm going to be showing you today is a very simple method that anybody, I believe anybody can do on their thicknesser. The benefit of the method I'm going to teach you today is that it should work on any thicknesser, and it should work on with whatever tools that you have in the workshop. Very, very basic method. I'm not sure if anyone's used this method before. It's just a method I thought up, and it works really well. Some of the tools you're going to need to do this blade changeover is a set of spanners, enough so that you can get into your machine, and when you get onto the drum itself, you'll find that it's either got some little nuts on there, or it should have little grub screw sort of Allen key setup. This one here has some nuts, so I've got my spanner set over here. I'll be using that to pull all the blades out. The first thing you want is a nice straight piece of timber, and being fairly hard is a good thing as well. You don't want to use soft timber because it's going to get eaten away by that the blade as you spin it around. Second thing, you want to just check that it'll sit nice and flat. So after you choose your nice straight piece of timber, it's important to run it through the thicknesser, and if your thicknesser is already a bit dodgy, find the best side of the thicknesser, just to ensure that the timber is a consistent thickness all the way across. I've just written down the height of that. Just remember to set the height of that when we want to put our blades in. The other thing is that we need to chop this in half. I made sure this is long enough to be able to do that from the start. And we'll use those later. So I've just used our thicknesser to ensure that we've got two pieces of timber exactly the same height, and I'm going to switch everything off. So it's switched off at the front. I'll switch that off there. Kick that in if you want. Alright, and you'd also slip a padlock through there if you had other people working around the workshop. Now everyone's machine's going to operate differently, but obviously I can't show you every machine how to get into it, but this one's pretty simple. Normally you'd have a few screws through there, but this one just sort of sits on there. So you can take that off there. And lift that up here. Exposes all the gear that we've got on here. We've got at the front just these little catches here. They prevent anything from getting pulled backwards. We've got our roller here, so you've got a bit of damage on here. And you want to be careful. You can see there's quite a bit of damage to this blade. So definitely due for a new set of blades. And this system here, this one here has 4 blades. A lot of them have 3. And another roller at the back there. Okay, you want to be, when managing, when handling this blade, you want to be careful. Obviously any slip sideways is going to cut your fingers open quite easily. You can see we've got lots of little nuts in here. Some of the other ones have little little screws that you use the Allen key for. I find them quite easy to adjust because I've seen these little nuts break off before. When you're in the process of changing the blades, it's a good idea to check your machine over to see if it needs greasing. So if you took the sides off here, you'd most likely find on your machine some grease points, unless it's a real modern thing that doesn't require any greasing, but most of the ones I've seen do. So not a bad idea if you want to increase the longevity of your machine, to pull off those sides and give it a bit of a grease. Now I was having a little bit of trouble getting this spanner in for my set from home. I was a little bit fat for that, and then I remembered we had one in the office that you can see if you look closely that it's been ground off to be a little bit skinnier. They're both 11mm, but you can see that there's quite a bit of difference there. So sometimes you might have to modify your tools a little bit, buy a cheap spanner and chuck it on the linisher a little bit there, might be handy. It gets in a lot easier. Loosen off. What you need. Now, always a bit wary of if you happen to slip your hand and onto that blade, it'd be quite unfortunate. Again, grabbing those pieces and probably having them in the same order and the same way as you had them before is not a bad idea. Keep things a bit easier. You're going to turn around and rip all of those blades out. Not a bad idea to clean that excess dust out of there and inspect, see if there's any damage, anything that shouldn't be in there. Here's where the magic happens. You got that timber from before. Drop that back. Probably pushing these up is not a bad idea. and chuck them in either side. Make sure they're not riding up on the side or sitting on any dust. Alright, once they're in, you want to crank it back up to the height that you originally cut it at, which on here was 34, and lock it all in place. Careful when you're grabbing your new blades out, because they're going to be a lot sharper than your old ones. So, same way as before, new blade, and drop in your new blade and align it to the sides. Make sure that they're overlapping both sides the same amount, or lining up quite well on this little chip deflector component is on the bottom, but your blade wants to be up more than it would need to be, because it's going to get pushed down to the right level, which is pretty close to about here. So make sure it's higher than it needs to be, and going to just tighten up your sides, just each end. They're not tight, just back it off a little bit so it's firm. It'll still be pushed around a little bit if needs be. So what you're going to do now is to rotate it backwards until it touches the timber, and then you're going to rock it through. It should be enough until you can just get it around. So that has pushed it just underneath the wood, and I'm just going to tighten this next one up a little bit, because I don't want to touch that first one. If I touch that first nut, it might throw away that the way that blade is nice and parallel to that edge. So tighten them up a little bit and see that it still goes around, which it does. I can then tighten up them. Very good idea to ensure that they're all tight at this stage, one at a time, because you've got so many nuts holding it firm. It shouldn't be wriggling out of place at this stage. Make sure you put the amount of pressure on that you want to have on at the end, because if you forget about it later on, it spits a blade out at you. Not going to be too exciting. Lastly, just want to check that you can still get it around past there, and you just want to continue that. Until all your blades are on. when you're tightening up your nuts, it's a bit, you want to be a bit careful, because if you go too tight, what's going to happen is you're going to snap these little things off. I've seen it happen before. I haven't done it myself, but I've seen it happen. And the other thing is, if you don't do it up tight enough, I have seen this happen, that spit a blade out. So blade comes out when the machine's going. You can see over here, spat the blade out, cut into that drum there. Not a pleasant thing to happen. So they have to be tight, but if you overdo it, you're going to snap some of those nuts off, and it's probably hard to find a replacement. Alright, you may wish to use gloves when you do this, but the problem is these blades are so sharp, might give you a false sense of security. You might end up cutting straight through the glove and into your hand anyway, so I prefer to just treat it very carefully and gently. Don't go forcing anything, and hopefully you won't end up cutting yourself. Just one thing you want to be careful of is you don't sort of jam your hand in a place where you can't get it out later on. What you want to be careful of is that you don't get your hand stuck around behind the blade. So if it's getting difficult to rotate the barrel around, you need to use a spanner and wedge it in behind the blade and use that as leverage. It makes it a lot easier to rotate that barrel around, and it's a lot safer as well. So if it's jamming up, you can't get your hand in there, you can use that system to help a little bit. Okay, so you got it around. Just have one little last check, make sure everything looks like it's fine, everything's good. Checking those chip breakers are sitting down flat. Okay, pretty happy with that. Wind down. Remove the timber. That's why you need to have hard timber, because soft timber you'll end up chewing out a fair bit, and it's not going to be very synchronized then. Okay, make sure everything looks good. Don't want to leave a spanner inside there either. That would be quite unfortunate as well. Okay. Make sure you grab all the appropriate safety gear, because the first time operating the thicknesser after changing blades, you want to be a bit cautious. Alright, I've just set this to 17mm and lock your table in. Turn on your machine, turn on your extraction, step to the side. So when your machine's running, it's very important never to look directly down the throat of it. You can see it by the angle when I'm checking the speed, see the rollers are turning, that you're off to the side, so if anything does spit out the front, it's not going to spit into your face. Now the interesting part of this process is that every time I set it using this method, you can't even see any ridges in the timber at all. A lot of the time when you set it with other methods, you can see this piece here, you can see lots of little ridges running through there. Okay, the last thing you want to do is I just set that to 17, or what I hope was 17 before, and you just want to check that up with your ruler. So you can use a vernier or whatever if you like, but that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that there. If it's not quite right, what you want to come and do is adjust this little setting on the side so it's pointing at exactly whatever thickness you end up when your timber goes through. That's the end of this video. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you've got any questions about the video, don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to answer those questions. And have yourself a great day. Thank you.